Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, Italy's labour pains. Why are unions and even the unemployed fighting against the government's plan for jobs? Ciao tutti, I just want to make our Italian community feel at home. Welcome, it's great to have you here. Malika Blau, digital producer of the stream, been looking at Italian Twitter, Italian online community. What are they saying about this new Jobs Act?
They're saying a lot, so I want to actually show you something. This is on my laptop. Now This is, of course, is our Storify on our homepage at stream.aljazeera.com. You'll find lots of elements related to the show here, pictures, Instagrams, tweets, but the best part, arguably for me, is at the bottom of the page where there's a pretty vibrant conversation, bilingual I might add, between lots of members of our online community on this topic. And so for those of you at home, we want you to join that conversation as well. To do so, just tweet me, use the hashtag AJStream.
And before we get started, here are some of the hashtags Italians on Twitter are using to share their opinions. Would you like to have a job for life? The prospect of long-term job security might sound appealing, but in Italy, some think the country's system of protecting workers leaves a little room for young people to find employment. Earlier this month, Parliament passed Prime Minister Matteo Renzi's controversial Jobs Act, which aims to make it easier for businesses to hire and fire workers. Viewed as an affront to workers' rights, the move has angered both unions and the unemployed. But in a labour market dominated by older employees, critics say that the current labour policies have segregated Italy's younger generation into either unemployment or taking temporary jobs with no benefits. Youth unemployment is over 40% and the country is in the middle of its third recession since 2008. So today we want to discuss what should be done to increase job opportunities for all Italians. Joining us from Italy, we have Fausto Durante of CGIL, that's the General Italian Confederation of Labour, Italy's largest trade union. He's joining us from Cosenza. Michele Martone is a former Deputy Minister for Labour and Welfare and currently Professor at the Italian National School of Government. And in Turin, Italy, Francesca Di Santier is a recent university graduate who is protesting against the Jobs Act. So everybody, it's great to have you here in the stream. Francesca, what are you doing right now for work?
I'm not working at the moment. Yes, I am part of the 43% of young Italians who did not find a job or found just precarious and temporary jobs.
But you're highly qualified. What's your degree? You can show up for us on the stream.
Yeah, I recently graduated less than 6 months ago in a research master. So yeah, I could say I'm highly qualified.
See, from the outside, we often think of Italy having this idea of jobs for life, job security. Is that a false myth or a false belief? What is it like inside Italy? Do Italians really believe that?
Well, for me at the moment, the perspective of having a stable job in the next 10 years is basically a dream. It's something I don't see for myself, and neither do my friends, people from my same generation. I think the perspectives for us are really, we say in Italian, without ground. I mean, our perspectives are just completely uncertain, I would say. So yeah, I think stability, at least in a perspective of working, is not something that we believe in anymore.
Francesca, what is that like? Are you, as a generation of new graduates, are you depressed? Are you sick of Italy? How does that translate to your everyday life?
I would say I'm more angry than depressed. That's why I am trying to take in part into the protests that are going on now and joining the social movements. that are going throughout the whole territory in Italy at the moment.
Sure. Milika.
Well, Femi, you asked whether or not that idea of jobs for life was a myth or something that's really there, and we actually heard responses to that. So Pier Francesco on Twitter says, in Italy, labor rules are 44 years old. Life is dramatically changed, and those rules are simply ridiculous. And he goes on to say, Article 18 creates an apartheid employment, and he's referencing Article 18 of the Labor Code. Fausto, could you explain to us what he means by that, giving us a brief explanation of what Article 18 is, and why you think he believes it's an apartheid employment?
Well, Article 18 of the Italian Labor Code simply protects workers from unfair and unjustified dismissal. It's a principle in juridical terms which exists in all modern countries. That's not true that in Italy you cannot dismiss workers. Every year, in those years of big economic crisis, we had almost 2 million people dismissed in big, medium and small enterprises. So that's not true that you cannot dismiss people. Article 18 protects only against unfair and unjustified dismissal. So it's not an apartheid, it's a principle of civilization.
So Fausto, people have shared stories where they've tried to move an employee who might not be the best at their job, and that employee will take the employer to court and they can't move them. And other stories of people maybe not being as competent as they should be, and again in Italy, having no recourse there. Do you hear those stories too? Is that the downside of this Article 18 protecting everybody's jobs?
No, that's completely not true. As I told you before, due to the restructuring, to the cut in orders, due to the lack of competitiveness of many Italian companies, we had more than 2 million of people dismissed during 2012, which is the last year when we have final results. So that's not true that you cannot dismiss. It's true that if a company has problem, it can open a discussion with trade unions. It can discuss the reason why a company needs to reduce activity and to reduce workforce, and normally this is done with a trade union agreement. So that's not true that you cannot dismiss people in Italy.
Let me bring in Michelle. Michelle is a former Deputy Minister of Labour and Welfare. Michelle, when you hear Fausto speak right now, was he your nemesis when you were in the administration?
But you see, the real problem is that we are always talking about the law, but the problem with job creation is that job creation doesn't belong to the laws or the reform. The job creation comes from an economy, from growth. And the real problem that we have to face is that our country is now doesn't have growth. It's now 7 years that we don't have growth. So what has been happening in the US, for example, is that after the Obama Jobs Act, the economy has started again to recovery, and now you have again an important growth also in jobs. So what is doing the Job Act is trying to make simpler the labor legislation and to attract investment in our country. This is the main goal of this law, because the rules that, and I can understand that Francesca is protesting against the reform, but the rules that she is protecting are rules that have been created 50 years ago. The Statuto dei Lavoratori is a rule that has been done, a law that has been enacted in the 70s, just at the beginning of the 70s, when globalization didn't even was in the mind of no one.
Right, so Michelle, I can see Francesca fidgeting a little bit, because Francesca here is part of the 43% unemployed, has no prospect of getting a job that she feels she can have anytime soon. Stop talking politics and maybe talk directly to Francesca. What is going to change that might actually help her and her generation?
I'm talking to you. You're working for Al Jazeera. You have an important opportunity. Do you think that the laws can protect you can protect your job, or do you think that your job is depending on how Al Jazeera is performing well in the technology system, in the television performance? Your job belongs to the law, or belongs to the fact that your company is working well? Do you think that the law can give you a long-term contract for all your life, or do you think that you will have your job until you will perform, and until your job will have a reason, and until there will be an audience for this?
Sure, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think it depends on what part of the world, or if we're talking about the United States, what state you're even in. But let's take it away from me. I do understand the example you're giving, and share the conversation with our community.
Well, I want to share this story that we just received from Anna. And Francesca, I'll direct this one to you. Anna on Twitter says that in Italy, people who got hired before the 1990s have irremovable contracts and they cannot be fired. People hired recently can be fired too easily. Francesca, do you fall into that second group? Do you often fear for the longevity of your job?
Yeah, what I fear most is not. I don't even get to the point of being worried about firing. I am afraid of a life, working life made of temporary contracts and made of contracts who do not protect my rights. So what I don't like in the rhetoric used by the Italian government at the moment is that it is promoting flexibility in Europe, as European Union wants, as a promotion of growth, to foster growth, economic growth. And then at the same time, it promotes the Jobs Act as protection of, and let's say, a way to make, to make the contracts in general and the labor market new, to renew everything. And to, at the same time, protect our rights as workers and as precarious workers. I see flexibility and precariousness as synonyms for me. So what I really fear at the moment is that I won't ever have a stable contract, and then I could fear that I would be fired in an unfair way. I don't know if I was clear enough.
Very clear. Let me share with our audience.
Can I make a question, please?
Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
The real problem is about investment. The problem that we're facing in Italy is now 20 years that companies goes abroad, in other country, that leaves Italy, investment leaves Italy and go in other country. They go to Amsterdam.
And that's because of the Article 18?
They leave the country. And this is a problem that we're facing now. And we have to attract investors.
It's not because of the Article 18, Michel.
And there's great opportunities. And the problem is that when you go on trial, for example, rules are too complicated. What the Job Act is trying to do is to make rules more simple, to give to people that wants to invest the rule of law.
Okay.
Not to go on trial, doesn't know how things are going to end in trial after 3 years, 4 years. This is a problem of the country.
All right, Fausto, what were you saying in response to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, that the point is that the lack of competitiveness and the investments not coming to Italy are not depending from the Article 18. This is the point. And I cannot share the idea that to create new jobs and to be more competitive, you can obtain it by decreasing workers' rights. This is the point.
Right.
Some months ago, the Prime Minister Renzi said very clearly during a TV show that Article 18 was not the main problem, because company in Italy need to have a public bureaucracy more efficient, need to have territory not controlled by organized criminality, need to have an environment for companies more able to create convenience for companies to stay there. And it's not simply having possibility to dismiss easily people that investment can come to Italy. This is the point. After a few months, Mr. Renzi changed his opinion, and what he's doing now with the Jobs Act is to decrease workers' rights and to create a new form of apartheid. Old workers protected against unfair dismissal, new workers, young workers without any rights. We have 50 different possibility and contractual arrangements in Italy to engage people, but we have never seen the increase of jobs, only diminution. So it's not through rules, but it's through investment and new economic policy.
I'm sorry, Fausto, but in the Job Act is not only about the Article 18. There is much more in the Job Act. There is a new social safety net. There is new rules for motherhood, also for people that
there is no money in the Jobs Act for financing.
But most of all, and it's reducting the contract from 50 to 5 or 6. So it's making simpler our labor market. And I agree with you that changing Article 18 won't create jobs.
All right, gentlemen, give me a pause for a moment. Gentlemen, give me a pause for a moment, because I want to bring this back to young people, because we have about a 43% unemployment rate in Italy right now. So I think young people should be really key as we have this conversation. This video is from a group known as the Social Strike Group, and they have been protesting this upcoming Job Act. The Job Act is still going ahead in January. Some details have to be worked out. This is Pio, and Pio is explaining his job situation. He works online, and these are his job conditions. Have a look at this.
Le giornate lavorative sono infinite, 10 o 12 ore, sempre col computer. Il lavoro praticamente ti insegue. Non ho diritto alla malattia, non ho diritto a prendermi un giorno per andare con i miei parenti dal medico. Non ho diritto allo sciopero. Come faccio a scioperare se sono un lavoratore autonomo, se siamo tutti frammentati e se non ho una sede? Io il 14 novembre scendo in piazza e incrocio le braccia per lo sciopero sociale.
So Francesca, that was the strike back in November. You're going to a strike in the next 24 hours or so. What is it that you're hoping, or protest I should say, what is it that you're hoping to achieve? What's the message you want to send out?
Well, as I said before, I think that the main claim is that we need stability rather than flexibility. We need to have a perspective of a stable job, a stable life in the next 10 years, and not the perspective of having maybe 6 months or 1 year contracts. That's all. But there were also 3 main claims that were made in the social strike of November 14 that will be raised again tomorrow, and these are a basic income, a European minimum wage, and more funds, of course, public funds for school, universities, and culture in general. So these are the 3 main claims that we make during these protests.
Are your friends leaving the country to find work elsewhere, Francesca?
Yeah, I have lots of friends now going abroad. I am myself planning to move as well, although I am, of course, in love with my country, and I'm not leaving because I hate it or because I don't want to be here and struggle. I do want this. I did do this, but I also think that at the moment, if I want to have a better perspective, I need to go abroad at least for a period to have more opportunities once I will decide to come back.
You know, Femi, you mentioned the protests, and online there's one person at least is sharing with us a kind of creative protest that he and a group of students and temporary workers are enacting. Ettore says, our lives aren't games, and so they're using Lego toys, and I'll show you. They're putting them in places of offices like this one and other places around Italy, mostly in Pisa, and this is part of their protest using hashtag It's Not a Game to show their displeasure at this act. And so picking up on that displeasure, Michel, we got this Facebook comment. This is from Agata, who says, the Jobs Act will be the tombstone of constitutional rights. I think that work is a social right and not an individual privilege. So what do you say to people? Because clearly there are a lot of them online who really think that this is a bad thing, that this is not going to advance employment in the way that the government hopes it will.
That so many Italian young people are leaving our country, and when they leave our country, they are going in a country in which there is no Article 18, and even the idea of all lifelong contract is not even imaginable. I wouldn't say that in the US no one would think to have a long life, a whole lifelong contract. Everyone knows that, I mean, there will be a moment in life when you have a job and then you can change your job, and it's important to empower people. And so many of Italian young people are leaving our country with a very good education to go in other countries, but there they don't find the Article 18. They find opportunities because in those countries there are people investing. So the real problem that we have now in Italy is to make all these young people, all our youth, to come back in our country. But to do it, we have to attract also investment, because what we need now is good companies that can compete in the world. This is the main problem that we are facing. It's not about defending a law which has been enacted 50 years ago.
Michelle?
It is about trying to make simpler rules to attract investment and to have two new companies that can sell in all the world and made in Italy. Because
Michelle?
there is, yes.
Michelle, as you were speaking, Fausto was doing this.
No.
Why were you doing that, Fausto?
Agree.
Yeah.
I want to say, Michelle, it's very simple what happens to young people in Italy. We say, I have two sons. I say to my sons, you have to study, you have to take a degree, to graduate. You have to go in a foreign country, in a foreign university, to specialize, to have a master, to be experienced and well educated. Then when you come back to Italy, your job is to answer in a call center with a wage of 400 euro, which is under any threshold of poverty. Under any threshold of poverty. This is the destiny of Italian young people. And that's exactly the reason why Francesca and other young students, other young protesters think that they have no future in Italy. So what the government should do is not intervening on workers' rights, but to make wages more civil in Italy. This is the point.
Fausto, I'm sorry, but the fact that now in Italy there is so many call center and there is no new companies, new enterprise, that new idea is exactly the problem that our youth is going abroad. And the problem is that we don't have, there is a lack of investment in our country. That the good company
the lack of investment does not depend from workers' rights. The lack of investment is depending on the lack of competitiveness of the system.
Fausto, I'm sorry, I was talking. So the real problem now, I'm telling you again, is that in our country we only have call center left. And we have to find a way to make new companies, to create new companies, a new idea to make them grow. This is the point about...
Okay. All right, gentlemen, I hear this. We have Fausto saying workers' rights. We have Michelle saying investment. I really care about what Francesca has to say. I'm going to give you the last word, Francesca. Are you even going on job interviews right now? How close are you to getting a job? You have a master's degree.
Yeah, well, I can't tell at the moment.
Right.
I don't know. A last word could be that I don't think that people who are going on a social strike really care about investments and how to attract companies. We just don't accept anymore of being invisible. That's why we are on the street, because we want to show that if all the people who don't have even the right to strike, as the guy in the video said,
you don't want to be invisible anymore. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
All right. So that's Francesca Di Sampier. She is one of the 43% of the unemployed in Italy, unemployed young people in Italy. Taking Francesca, Michelle and also Fausto to our post show. Do come with us if you can. stream.aljazeera.com. Now, on the next show, Malika is away, so Omar Badar will be right here in the studio with me. We'll be talking about Syria's humanitarian crisis and the challenges of getting enough resources for the 12 million Syrians who desperately need help. Stay with us. I'll see you in the post show. stream.aljazeera.com. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Streams Online Post Show. We're talking to Italians today about their country's plans to address unemployment and a lagging economy. So let's get right back to that conversation. Fausto, I'm hearing this debate. I hear workers' rights, I hear investment. Is that the way that the country is split, Italy is split right now in terms of where you should go to solve the unemployment issue, to help get Italy out of a recession? Is that workers' rights being pitted against maybe we need to do better business, invest more in business?
We make a lot of proposal to the Italian government. CGL proposed a new plan for jobs. The European Trade Union Confederation proposed the extraordinary plan of European investment, a new path for Europe. We think that the two aspects, investment and new industrial and economic policy, and the discussion about workers' rights are not in contradiction. We can combine them. What is unacceptable in Italy is that we have increasing inequality between workers, and we have the social basis of rights in work condition going down, but at the same time this diminution of rights is not resulting in increase of new jobs and increase of wages. This is the problem we have.
Michelle, why is Italy in this situation in the first place? A lot of Europe is going through a recession, but Italy seems to be harder hit than some of your neighbours. Why is that?
Because the previous generation has created third world largest public debt, which is now unsustainable for our economy. So our main problem in this moment that we have this huge public debt that makes taxes too high and investment too inconvenient. So our problem now is to attract investment, because this public debt is too big for our economy, and we have to come back to growth to start again to create jobs and attract also young people in our country. This is the problem of Italy. We need the new generation to take the made in Italy in all the world to make our economy grow. Otherwise our public debt would be too big for us. The problem is that the previous generation have had too much, have had too many rights, and the new generation has too few rights, and so they leave the country. This is the problem of our country.
But Francesca, I want to play you a video comment from someone who's a little bit split on the Jobs Act and what it could mean. So have a listen to this.
I don't think that the Jobs Act itself can create new jobs or reduce unemployment. For that, Europe must allow the Italian government to use a lot of money to reduce taxes on work. What can Jobs Act do? In my opinion, it can reduce the gap that in Italy is huge between who has regular contracts and all the young people who has no protection at all, no rights at all, because they use very flexible contracts.
So Francesca, he says this isn't going to create new jobs, but it might help narrow the gap, or at least start to help narrow that gap. Would you agree with that, at least in part?
I don't agree with the act that has been passed now. This act is actually an institutionalization of precariousness. It's an extremely vague text, which was even voted with the vote of confidence, and some people even doubt the constitutionality of it. And I do not agree that this will make the gap smaller. I think it will just make precariousness easier for employers.
So, Michelle, this Jobs Act, it is due to go into force around about January. Some details still to be worked out. What are your expectations for it?
My expectation is that it's going to be a little step forward. It's not enough. We will have to see how they will enact it. I think that we need also a new social climate, and that unions, that this war that is starting against between government and unions is wrong. They have to find a new point of agreement, because in this moment our country needs social peace. We don't need strike, we don't need discussion of this type, and I hope they will find a new agreement, a political agreement, and we can start again thinking about the future, which is what we are really missing in this moment.
Fausto, your expectations for the Jobs Act?
what I think is that, in principle, there is no money for the reforms Renzi announced. There is a big influence of employers in the position of the government. The boss of Confindustria, the business association in Italy, is the only one who is very happy of the new Jobs Act. And the possibility to create jobs is made by the Jobs Act only by the creation of a triple labor market. Workers with rights, workers with less rights, worker with no rights. That's not the right way. We don't need strikes, said Michel. Okay, but the main responsibility is in the hand of the government. From the Prime Minister Renzi, trade unions had only doors closed. So if you don't want strike in Italy, you have to dialogue with trade unions.
Francesca, your expectations for the Jobs Act, what difference will it make to you and to many other young graduates in Italy?
In my opinion, it would just make the situation harder for us. It will make our state of precariousness even more worrying. And I think it will also there is already a lack of confidence in our institutions, in our government, and among young people, this Job Act is just enforcing this lack of confidence.
All right, so thank you very much to Francesca Di Sampier, Michel Mattone, Ney, and also Fausto Durante. Thank you very much for giving us a little glimpse into Italy's conversation about the upcoming Jobs Act. Really appreciate your time today. One more place to visit, that's the community. And what do they have to say?
I'll leave us with two thoughts because our community is just as split and divided as they were before the show. So we got this tweet written in Italian. We translated it for you. May says, badly, I see this as very bad for young people and for Italy as a whole. The Jobs Act is a bill on legalized firing. But on Facebook, Pier Francesco says the Job Act is a great reform that gives rights to young people that are working without any safety as modern slaves.
All right, so the conversation continues online and in Italy. Meanwhile, let me tell you about our next show. Malika is heading off for a week, so Omar Bada will be right here in the studio. We will be talking about Syria's humanitarian crisis and the challenges of getting enough resources for the 12 million Syrians who desperately need help. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.